Welcome to all of you as you're coming in. What we're going to do is we're going to run you through some kind of quick presentation about the program. It usually takes about 20 minutes. It's a brief overview of our program. And as we get started, what we want to kind of do is share with you this quick little presentation about the College of Aviation. So as we kick off here, the first thing we want to do is kind of tell you what our agenda is. Since this is kind of a brief overview of the program, we won't be able to do a deep dive into it. So what we want to offer you is an opportunity to set up a in-depth, individualized presentation with us. And you can do that by signing up for a personalized WebEx opportunity. If that's something that you're interested in, what we would ask you to do is email me directly. And at the bottom of the screen is my email. It's tom.thinnes. So tom.thinnes @wmich.edu, and you can schedule that with us. Like I said, the agenda for this is to do a quick overview of the program, and we'll talk about all three programs: the Aviation Flight Science program, the Aviation Management Operations, and the Technical Operations. We will also be doing all of the Q&A throughout this, and then we will also finalize with the contact information. So if you want to set up one of those individualized presentations, you can do that. The thing we'd like to kind of start off with is just some of the success of the WMU Aviation program. As we like to say at Western, it's a great day to be a Bronco, but we think at the College of Aviation that it's a great day to be an aviation Bronco. And what you have here is we'd encourage all of you to investigate some of the success of our aviation students. And so what we have out there is our Aviation Blog that is available to our students, to interested students. And on that blog, you can find stories about our alumni that are professional pilots, people that have become successful in the management and operations, or people that have gone on into the technical operations. The best kind of example is Monique Grayson over there on the left-hand side. Monique is Grayson is, I think she is a graduate from, 2012. And Monique is now a first officer at Delta Airlines. And the smile on her face says everything. It's a great day to be a Bronco, and that smile really resonates with us as far as the enjoyment that our graduates go out and do, and their success. And so if you want to learn about being a professional pilot, there's stories about Monique and Randall Rashawn, or Jonathan Miller. You can, if you want to, about Tech Ops, read about Simi, or Mitchell Patterson, or Margot. And if you're interested in the management, read about Eric Epplett or Scott Warner. Those are all some stories that really highlight what our alumni are out there doing and what's going on for them. So with that being said, I'm going to kind of turn it over to Raina for a couple slides, and she's going to talk a little bit about our programs and also some of the points of pride for the aviation program.
Thanks, Tom. So to get us started here, we'll give you some quick biographical information about us, if you will. Quick summary of our program. So first things first, we are made up of 3 different programs within the College of Aviation. The first being Aviation Flight Science, that is our professional pilot path. Also Aviation Management on the business logistical side of aviation. And last but certainly not least is our Aviation Technical Operations program. You'll hear us refer to it as Aviation Tech Ops, and that is the maintenance mechanic side of aviation. We've been around since 1939. We are one of the oldest aviation education institutions in the country. So we've actually been around 81 years now, which is pretty exciting. We've seen it all before, all the highs and lows, and here we still are. Another aspect that we like to talk about, we are obviously also a part of Western Michigan University as a whole, which has about 200 undergraduate majors and about 21,000 students. Aviation is the smallest slice of that pie. Again, we have 3 majors and about 1,100 students within the college. The breakdown is there for you between the majors, but the main aspect of this, if you ask me, you kind of get the best of both worlds. The large university, the big library, the Division I athletics, students from all majors, while not losing that small college feel, especially while you're on days that you're out at the airport. It's definitely a family environment within the aviation Broncos, which is awesome. We will talk a little bit more in detail later about how we are consistently recognized by the industry as a top aviation Aviation program. We don't just say that, we do have partnerships that we think pay testament to the quality of graduates that our program produces. Last but not least, on this slide here, we do want our students to be aware that they will be spending time in 2 different locations. So Western Michigan University's main campus is located in Kalamazoo. For our out-of-state students joining us, that is southwestern Michigan. Battle Creek is about 18 miles or about a 30-minute drive to the east. We fly out of the Battle Creek Executive Airport, and our College of Aviation, Aviation Education Center is located out there, which I think Tom will bring up on the next slide for you. We're really excited about our what's happening out at the Battle Creek facility. It is currently undergoing an expansion and renovation, so it doesn't look like this quite yet, but it's really getting there. We're really excited to hopefully take occupancy early next year, around January or February. We're going to have triple the amount of flight briefing rooms for one-on-one time with your flight instructor, more classroom space. We'll have a brand new complete paint lab for our tech ops students, student lounge and cafe area, and just a lot more space that's updated and new and exciting for our students. So we definitely can't wait. Back over to you, Tom, for what's next.
And if you're interested in checking out the progress of our building, you can also go to our website. And if you go to the College of Aviation website and you go to our About tab, so our aviation website is wmich.edu/aviation. You go to About Us and go to our AEC expansion project, and there's some cool pictures and videos of the program as it has moved forward. So we've come a long way, and we did have about a month and a half that we had to take a hiatus in the construction. So in the video, you'll see a lot of no action here for a little bit. We did, because of the coronavirus, but we did restart the whole project back in the 1st of May, and we're slightly behind schedule, but we're still hoping that we're going to be getting moving forward, and we will be taking occupancy of it January or February, which means that we'll be able to offer classes sometime in summer 1 of 2021. So really, really excited about that. Looking at our aviation flight science program and diving into this, when you start looking at the program, there's some things that are pretty significant. And one is that we are constantly looked at and viewed as one of the premier aviation programs in the country. We have a very, very strong industry reputation. We are able to take people from 0 time up to through their private, their instrument, and their commercial license. Those ratings and those licenses there are 5 flight labs that are part of those licenses. We do train to the Part 141 standards and regulations that and the rules that are required by the FAA. So it's a very, very rigorous flight training program, a very regimented program. Because of the fact that we train to the Part 141 standards, and because the majority of our aviation curriculum is aviation courses, we do qualify for the restricted airline transport pilot's license at 1,000 hours, and the students can qualify for it at 21 years old instead of the 1,500 hours and 23. So what that means is that when you go through the private instrument and the commercial ratings, you'll finish with about 200 to 250 hours. That's built into the curriculum. And then a student will have to build time up to 1,000 hours. Most of the students will build time by flight instructing, and we do hire our students. If they are flight instructors, they can become a flight instructor while they're still a student or after they graduate, and they can build time up to that 1,000 hours. And then once you reach that 1,000 hours, then you become eligible to apply for a job at an airline. We are, as Raina mentioned, we have a very strong industry reputation, and the best way that we can demonstrate that is our partnership with 2 of the mainline carriers that are out there. And that would be United, the United Aviate program and the Delta Propel program. So Western Michigan University is only one of 3 programs in the country that is affiliated both with United Airlines and Delta Airlines. And so that's something that we're very proud of, and it's a great accomplishment for us. It really speaks volumes for the quality of the aviation program. So then that leads us to this last part of this slide, is when will I fly? Now, what we have chosen to do at Western, both pre-COVID and post-COVID, is not guarantee that a student will start flying right away. What we would rather do is to under-promise and over-deliver. We strongly encourage our students to submit flight applications and focus on their academic career, criteria every single semester, and submit that flight application every single semester. The reason for this is that there are so many unknown variables, and previously, leading up pre-COVID, we had a very robust hiring industry out there, meaning that our flight instructors were getting hired by the industry quicker than we could make them, which sometimes led to a backlog of flight students. So what we chose to do was not guarantee that a date that a student would start flying. Again, under promising, over deliver. Now that we have we're in the middle of COVID, and as we exit post-COVID, we do know that the industry is compressing. We do know that the hiring in the industry has slowed down and stopped, and this may go on for the next 6 months, year, maybe a next year and a half, maybe even 2 years. So for incoming students, for those of you going into your senior year or your juniors, or even incoming freshmen this year, typically you're 4, 5, 6 years away from graduating. So what the world will be like in 4 to 5, 6 years will be completely different than what it is now. We're kind of looking at this is much like the industry exiting out of September 11th. It's going to take us a little bit, but we will come back, and we anticipate that we will come back stronger than ever. But because of the slowing of the industry, we may actually see that we have more flight instructors than we did, and we may retain them for longer. So we may actually be able to catch up. But what we have chosen still to do is not guarantee that a student will start flying immediately. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to turn it over to Raina, and she's going to talk a little bit about our flight fees.
So a couple of quick things, most important things that we want to mention about these flight fees. First and foremost, that they are not all due up front. They are broken into those itemized lines there. So for those of you who come to us with no previous experience, who start with the private pilot license, the first charge you would see on your tuition statement, these are issued with tuition, so they can be claimed on your FAFSA, financial aid, any scholarships you qualify for. They are viewed as an educational academic expense. The first charge you would see would be that $10,752 and change there. The other important note here is that note that you see down at the bottom, that flight fees are based on an estimated cost of completion, which we calculated by taking the absolute minimums, multiplying them by 10%. The intention there is not to make 10% more money off you. We only charge you for what you use. That being said, every student uses a little bit different amount. Sometimes students will need a couple additional lessons to be fully prepared for a check ride, or sometimes students aren't prepared for a lesson and the lesson doesn't go so well and they need to repeat it. A couple of things that can happen there, ultimately a couple of things that could potentially cost you a little bit more money and require a little bit more training. So we added that buffer zone of that plus 10% in there to ensure that our students are covered through their training. Again, we only charge you for what you use. As you put that money in your account, it goes into a flight account, and as you have a flight lesson or a simulator lesson, the cost for that is deducted out of your account. And we have seen students come in under that total estimated cost there. That being said, we have seen students come in over that total estimated cost there. That's why that word estimated is in there. It is dependent on the student. The student can have an influence on what the total cost ends up being. If you come prepared for all of your lessons, you've studied, you know what's going to happen on your flight that day, and your lessons go well and you progress quickly through your training, those students will come in closer to, or hopefully best case scenario, under that total estimated cost there. For those of you that do already or plan to come in with your private pilot license, you can cross off that top gold box there and deduct that from the total estimated cost at about $22,800 and change. What you do need to add in is the cost for the private pilot transition course, that $5,600 or so dollars for the cost of the transition course there.
So, and the question that a lot of people ask is, should I come in with my private? Will that change things for me? And the answer to that is maybe. So in a second, I'm going to turn it over to Matthew and Dylan, because they actually came to Western with their private, to give you kind of a taste of what we see at the university. About 80% of our students come to us with no with no piloting experience whatsoever, and they start in our private pilot course as it is. So the question is, should I get my private pilot's license, and will it accelerate my acceptance into the flight program? Even with your private pilot, our statement is we won't guarantee you a flight slot. Now, what we will want to do is kind of educate you on how we prioritize flight slots. We prioritize flight slots based upon two criteria. One, the number of academic credit hours that you have successfully completed. So in high school, if you take AP classes, if you take dual enrollment, if you take any kind of, if you're taking some college classes right now, you might actually walk into Western Michigan University with, say, 15 credit hours of coursework. That, from that standpoint, that will put you up a few slots higher than that person coming in with 0 hours of credit. The other thing to understand is that we prioritize on academic portfolio. What your GPA is and what you do on the math assessment. The higher your GPA, the more it can push you up in the prioritization list. The X factor with this is going to be the private pilot's license. So if we have one flight slot available and we have two students that are academically identical, let's say they both have 24 credit hours of coursework and they're both 3.7 students, who gets the flight slot? What we then do is we start taking a deeper dive into the application. And then we notice that student A has their private pilot. Well, student A then gets 5 bonus points in that prioritization calculation, which would put them over student B, and they would get that flight slot, okay? Now understand though that academic credit hours and GPA will change every single semester. So what we strongly encourage those students to do is if you're not flying, you want to be academically strong. You want to get the highest GPA that you can. So Matthew, we'll start with you. You came in with your private. Why don't you talk a little bit about that experience?
So coming with my private, it definitely did add a little bit of a unique experience to me with my flight training at Western. The biggest difference is, of course, that transition course instead of taking the private course. So I did actually get into my instrument rating a little quicker than most other students did. However, I also came in with a very rigorous private training from outside of Western. My first flight instructor was an airline pilot for American Airlines, so I was already used to a lot of the operations Western was running. This is really where we see the difference. If you go to Tom's Discount Flight School and end up with Tom's Discount Pilot's License, it's going to take you a little bit longer to get through this transition course, primarily because of the knowledge base. That's where we see most students struggle. To put this in perspective, we anticipate most students taking about 6 to 8 weeks in that transition course. It took me 6 weeks to get through it. I had no problems. My roommate, who came in with as cheap of a license as he could manage, he had to spend 6 months in that course, and he doubled what the amount he had to pay was. So definitely my biggest recommendation is if you can get it done outside of Western and you know the program you're going to is reputable, especially if they have a ground school component, by all means, you can go for it. But if you're looking at just getting it done for the cheapest amount possible, keep in mind that cheaper isn't always better, and you may have to make that up on the back end.
Yeah, the important thing to realize, again, is that our program trains at the Part 141 standards. Most local flight schools train to Part 61. And as Matthew talked about too, where we've seen a lot of challenges for students coming in is that our program is incredibly rigorous, and the knowledge that we expect you to have is sometimes deficient when you go into a local flight school, in that those are a lot of times you're doing a self-study or you're doing online components. So if you are doing it, we would encourage you to supplement as much as you can. And I'll let Dylan talk a little bit about his experience and what he did.
Yeah, so my experience is kind of different from what usually people think of, when coming in with their private. Usually it's people getting their private before coming to Western. So what I did was my freshman year, second semester, I actually did my private on the outside at a Kalamazoo-based flight school while I was, still taking classes on main campus. And I did that from April to August is when how long my private took. Now I started ground school in January to March, so it's really important because Tom said it and Matt both said it. it's really important that you have a structured ground school, because that's going to transition very well into how we teach things at Western here. Because, I mean, in, larger ground school setups like an instrument ground, a commercial 1 or commercial 2 ground, if you don't have that kind of like background knowledge in a ground school and just having that, more rigorous structured ground school, it's not going to be as easy to transition into Western, because most students like the cheap way and go with, like Sporty's online pilots, private pilot thing, online school for like $100 or something like that. That's not really how, like, it's gonna, it's not really structured for you to become a professional pilot. That's kind of structured for you to be like a weekend war recreational pilot. See, like, I was lucky at my flight school. I had flight instructors who've been through the Western program and who also flight instructed at Western and at this Kalamazoo-based school. So I kind of had an upper hand in how I was taught. I was taught things and how Western operates. So that was also a very easy way for me to transform into Western too. But I mean, like, the biggest thing is that structured ground school, because at the end of the transition course, there's this thing called the stage check. It's the lesson 10. There's 10 lessons in the transition course. And that's kind of like the big defining moment to see if you know how to fly the Sierras and if you know how to fly it safely. And there's an oral and the flight portion. It's like a private pilot check ride, but it's easier. It's not to the high caliber of what an actual check ride would be. But we still want to make sure that you know what you're talking about with private pilot knowledge and stuff like that. So it's really important that you study up and you make sure like the pilot's handbook of aeronautical knowledge, and all those essentials that are in there to make sure that later on down the road, when you come into that oral at the end of the transition course, that you know what you're talking about and you can pass it with ease.
So looking at the criteria, and as we mentioned, so you'll notice on this slide right here that we have a couple things. So as you've heard us mention a couple times, we are going to underpromise and hopefully overdeliver. So we still do have the mechanisms in place where we can get freshmen to be considered for a flight slot. Incoming freshmen have to have a minimum high school GPA of a 3.0. The ACT or SAT requirement is gone because Western is now, or will be gone, and we're not looking at it this year. Because Western is going to test optional. So what we are choosing to do at Western is, in addition to your high school GPA, we're going to look at your math placement on our ALEKS assessment, which is ALEKS, and that's an assessment that our incoming freshmen will do when they come to orientation. We'll take those considerations. Now, once a student gets to Western, and if they don't get a flight slot that first semester, then once you get one semester worth of coursework underneath your belt, only thing that we'll look at is your Western academic portfolio. Now, to be considered and to maintain a flight slot, a student has to have a cumulative 2.75 WME GPA and 3.0 overall. What we tell students and parents all the time is forget that 2.75. Understand that this is a pretty competitive process. And so what you want to be focusing on is getting at least a 3.0 overall WMU GPA. Understanding the higher the GPA, the more it can push you up on the prioritization list. The other thing that we want to share with you is the application page. Where is that? So if you go to our webpage, wmich.edu/aviation, and if you go to academics, once you go to academics, you'll see aviation flight science. And then you'll see the initial flight training application. You'll see that as we go through here, it has all the academic standing requirements. If I have my FAA private pilot certificate, what does that mean and what do I have to do? And then at the bottom, you'll see that we have all the flight applications. Now, while we are not guaranteeing that a student will start flying right away, we strongly encourage that you submit your flight application every single semester. So for incoming freshmen, that application will go live June 1st, and it closes July 1st. If you are getting your private pilot's license, if you want to be considered for a fall flight slot, you have to have the private pilot complete and in hand before the deadline. We don't prioritize based upon date. We prioritize based upon those classifications that we ask. If you don't earn a flight slot or obtain a flight slot for fall, then we encourage students to submit for spring. And you'll notice that spring application goes live about the first week or 10 days after the semester starts, September 9th, and it closes October 15th. Same thing for summer 1 and summer 2. flight slots significantly open up in summer. So if you don't get a slot for fall or spring, we would strongly encourage you consider submitting that application for summer and sticking around and flying in that summertime. Now, to give you a taste of what this looks like and the success, under promising and over delivering, we're going to look at this past spring as an example. For the spring semester of 2020, the application went live September 9th, and the applications were due October 15th. We had 130 applications for flight. 50 of them were not academically eligible, so we removed them completely. That meant there was 80 viable applications. We accepted all 80. Of those 80, there was over 40, over half, that were actually new students, new freshmen to Western Michigan University. So those were students that their senior year in high school, they were told we would not guarantee them a flight start their first year, and they came in and they had to wait a whopping 4 months. Some of them that actually had their private, we actually started them in the end of November. So they started the transition course in November. So that again is an example of us under promising and hopefully over delivering. Raina.
So one other requirement when it comes to submitting that flight application, you will also need an FAA medical certificate. For those of you that aren't familiar, really quickly, there are 3 different classes of medicals, first class being the strictest, third class being the most lenient, and I think now it's equivalent to a driver's license. We require a minimum of a second class. We do really encourage you to try and get that first class though. Flying professionally, either an airline or corporate, any aviation place that will hire you as a pilot is probably going to require that first class medical, which is the reason why we want you to know if you are able to hold it before you go ahead and invest almost $70,000 in your flight training. There is a aviation medical examiner locator on the FAA's website. Search for it based on your location, or if you have a specific name in mind, you're also able to search that way. We do have an in-house aviation medical examiner, Dr. Greg Pinnell. That's the air docs you see on the screen there, who you are welcome to use. Yeah, and that's the medical requirement there. You do need to have that medical in hand in order to submit the private pilot in order to submit the flight application. So if you want to be considered for fall flight your freshman year, that means probably looking to book a medical appointment sometime in May, June, so that you're prepared, you know, just like other doctors, they do book out sometimes quite a bit in advance. So making sure that you are able to get an appointment so you don't miss out on the application there.
So, and lastly, we had one of the guests indicate the letter that we normally send out in regards to flight training. And this is last year's letter that we sent out. Now, this year's letter is a little bit differently because we've got some time under our belt and we've changed some things. But we still, the crux of the letter is that we don't guarantee that our students will get a flight date. Understand that regardless of that, our goal is to get students flying as soon as they can. We want to get the students in the air, but we will not guarantee that start date. As I mentioned, there's too many variables that we can't control. We do encourage those students to apply for a flight slot every single semester, maintain that strong academic GPA. If they're not flying, focus on other things that can accelerate and augment their ascension into aviation, and also continuing their networking and things like that. But looking at that, when we do look at the previous 2 years, when we've had students, we were able to accommodate all those students that were academically eligible, that maintained the high academic standings, and that had applied sometime during their first year, whether that was fall semester, spring semester, summer 1, or summer 2. So ultimately, our goal is to underpromise and overdeliver.
Career outcomes are very important to us. We think the entire reason to go to college is to get a job, right? So that being said, this past year we did actually have 100% success rate of our aviation flight science graduates, which means they placed into their career, additional training or education, or the military within 3 months after graduation. So there's a couple logos that you see on the screen there. The first set are regional airlines, which is more often than not our graduates' first step after completing their required flight hours after obtaining 1,000 hours. Most of our graduates will pursue the airline route and go on to fly for one of the regional airlines. There's a couple examples up there like Endeavor Air, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Delta, or Envoy, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of American, or SkyWest or Republic, which fly for all three of the mainline carriers. Eventually, those pilots will progress on to the mainline carriers like Delta, United, American, or Southwest. Some of our graduates also pursue the cargo route, which is why you see FedEx and UPS up there. Or some of our students, Dylan is a great example of this, are interested in corporate aviation, which is why you see Whirlpool up on the screen there. Just about any Fortune 500 company you can think of usually has a private jet that they fly their CEO and executive board around on. So working for one of those companies or for a company that does fly private jets for very lucky individuals, pursuing that route as well. More than what's on the screen there, but those in particular, we do have partnerships with, and we do work with year-round to provide opportunities for our students. A couple of examples for you: Aviation Outlook Day is our annual aviation-specific career fair. That day we have about 50 aviation companies on campus that want to talk with our students about opportunities with their company and how they can get our graduates at their company. Outside of that, they're also involved with our fall welcome event and also coming to campus for individual visits. For example, we have Delta days and days that United is on campus. That even as a first year student, we strongly encourage you to attend and learn more about maybe a career path that you didn't consider, or figuring out which one is the right fit for you, even within a specific subset of the industry. Figuring out, is cargo the right path for me, or is airlines really what I want to do? Going to those company presentations for more information is a great way to help figure that out. So that being said, talking about our career outcomes there, Tom, do you want to talk about United and Delta?
Yep, and I know we had one of the students is interested in being an Army, going in the Warrant Officer program, and a little anecdotal story about Aviation Outlook Day. We also have a lot of representatives from the military there, and my favorite story is one of our they were graduating, and they were walking through Military Row, and they stopped and they talked with the Army Warrant Officer program and got signed up. Now he's flying Apaches up in Alaska somewhere. So that's kind of cool. And that's the importance of networking and getting part of those. As we also kind of, talked about earlier, we are one of 3 programs in the country that is partnered both with United through their Aviate program and Delta through their Propel program. While Dylan is looking at corporate, I know Matthew is thinking about both of these programs, I think leaning towards the Delta Propel program. And Scott, you're still kind of investigating things, but I'm sure probably interested in one of these as well. But with one of 3 programs, when United launched their Aviate program back about 2 months ago, they launched it with 4 programs. Both United Aviate program and Delta Propel, these are accelerated pathway programs. They're both pretty darn similar as far as what they offer. But these accelerated pathway programs allow students either finishing their freshman year or beginning their junior year, as long as they have their private. Delta and United have different as far as the entrance into the program, but a student can actually go through the hiring process with these and walk out with basically a conditional job offer with both of these. Delta launched about 2.5 years ago. They launched with 7 institutions, 7 programs. There's 8 locations when you had the 2 Embry-Riddles. Western was one of those initial 7, and now with both United and Delta, there's only 3 programs that offer those. If you want more information and to dive deeper in these, we also have information on these programs on our website as well. So again, go back to our website. If you go to our jobs and internships, you can see that we have the Delta Propel program down there and the United Aviate program, and you can learn a little bit more about them. So jump into aviation management operations, turn it over to Raina. She can talk a little bit more about this, as she's an actual alum of the program.
So first and foremost, the main aspect of our aviation management and operations, the degree itself is quite literally half aviation and half business. So you will take all of those aviation classes, similarly to our aviation flight science students, classes like aviation safety, crew resource management, adding in some additional aviation classes specific to the aviation management, classes like airport safety and security, airport management, but also adding in a focus of business courses, classes like marketing, law, business finance, accounting, all of those business focused classes. So many, in fact, that the degree itself is actually only one additional class away from a general business minor, which a lot of our students will take advantage of. Like I said, in addition to the aviation aspect, adding in all of that business coursework, spending a considerable amount of time in our Hayworth College of Business, which is an awesome college in and of itself. You'll see down in the bottom left corner there, and I think on the next slide, Tom, are the possible careers. Yep. So this is by far the most open-ended of the three when it comes to career paths. Everything from airline management to airport management, working in safety, or on the aircraft sales side, dispatch, working in the operations center. You can see the now very recently passed United CEO Oscar Muniz up in the top right corner there. That's an aviation management and operations position. You can also see the aviation operations centers, airline operations and airport operation control centers throughout the country that keep pilots flying. For every pilot that's up in the air, there's 6 to 7 people on the ground making sure they stay up there safely. So you don't see this quite as frequently, but they do a lot of important work, especially keeping our industry safe and up in the air.
Excuse the pun. So Scott, you are a double major in flight and management. So why don't you talk a little bit about what that's like to be a double major in flight and management? I know you're just in your sophomore year, so you're still a little rookie-ish, but that's okay. We want to hear what it's like.
Yeah, so I'm double majoring with the aviation flight science and then the business and management. And with that, you're taking business classes and flying at the same time. It's kind of the best of both worlds. I came in with a lot of additional credits from high school with AP classes and college credit. So I knocked a bunch of the business classes out of the way before I even got to Western, which was nice and really appealing to do the double major.
That's awesome. And for those of you who are considering it, the thing to kind of look at is the feasibility of it. When you do look at and you analyze the flight curriculum with the management curriculum, there's about 50 additional credit hours, which equates to about 15 or 16 classes. Matthew, you're you're also double majoring, and you're a junior. How is that? How are you managing it? Because if you on paper, it might take you 5.5 years, but what are you anticipating to be graduating in?
So I'm actually anticipating to graduate in 4.5 years, and even then that's a little bit more than standard just because I took some extra time figuring out my major. My freshman year is actually a music major. So even with that coming in, not declaring business anything management operations related until I was already a sophomore, still looking at graduating pretty quickly here. The business classes fit very well into your schedule. Hayworth College of Business, well, of course the Aviation College is better in my opinion. It's still a fantastic place to be, and everyone there is really friendly. They will help you out. You have the chance to meet with advisors from both the College of Aviation and with the Hayworth College of Business to figure out your schedule. Honestly, it just comes down to time management, and especially one thing I would recommend for anybody who's interested in double majoring or just anybody overall, definitely stay summers. You get more classes done that way. That's when we have our best flight weather. Staying the summers can really help get you through that program quickly.
So then the question was, what is the employment rate of the management program? So Raina talked to we had 100% placement rate for flight last year. We had 100% in tech ops. And then in management, wasn't it 92, 93%, Raina? 94?
93.
93. Okay. And then, so which is pretty good. And we do have, a lot of people going out and doing a lot of different things with that. Another question that we had asked was, what's the percentage of our students that are flight or in the aviation program that are also honors, that are part of the honors program? I don't have the numbers. I just know it's a lot. So Scott, why don't you talk a little bit about the honors program? And, because there are a lot of aviation students that are also in the honors program.
Yeah, I was actually, from day one, I was really surprised to see how many faces were in the aviation program and in the honors college, which I was really surprised about. But from day one, right off the start, you'll get introduced in the honors college, and they will help you get through all your classes. They reach out, help you out with anything that you need. One of the nicest things about the honors college are some of the honors classes you're able to take, especially for someone that is doing the management and operations pathway. There's honors classes for you to take, which are smaller, more in-depth, and overall sometimes like even better than the regular classes.
Yeah, like Scott said, sometimes the misconception with the honors college is that the honors version of the class is harder than the regular version, which is definitely not the case. If anything, for some students, it can be a lot easier since it is a much smaller class size, and a lot of times the instructors have to incorporate a lot more labs and hands-on learning. The Honors College is really great at. So it's a fantastic opportunity if you're considering taking a part of it.
The Honors College does also offer some of the best scholarships available at Western, such as the Medallion and President Scholarships.
I know we got about 10 minutes. We got a little bit more, so we're going to quickly just kind of talk a little bit about the technical operations program. The technical operation program at Western is also pretty cool in the fact that our students kind of get the best of both worlds with this. They get all of the technical training that allows them to qualify for the Federal Aviation Administration's airframe and power plant certification, or what we call the AMP. So all the technical training, but at Western, we actually offer this as a bachelor's degree too. So our students really kind of get the opportunity to be the masters of their own destiny. If they want to stay on the floor, they want to turn wrenches, they love the smell of jet fuel in the morning, they can get that and they can do that. But let's say 4 years down the line, 5 years down the line, they want more. With that bachelor's degree in aviation technical operations, it's not uncommon for our graduates to be project leaders, maintenance managers, or team leaders in these technical operations programs, like at Duncan Aviation or AAR or Delta, things like that. We also have a couple of other pathway programs in the Tech Ops program. Western Michigan University was the first program in the country to sign the Eagle Pathway program with AAR Corporation. AAR Corporation is the largest maintenance repair overhaul facility in the United States. They do a lot of heavy checks and maintenance on all sorts of different types of aircraft, including mainline carriers and regional carriers. When they developed their Eagle Career Pathway program, they wanted a program that had a specific MRO or air carrier course. Western had that, and so they really kind of customized their program around what we had, and they've since launched it with some other programs too. We also have a Delta Tech Ops Pathway program that is allowed to provide students with an opportunity to kind of direct themselves into Delta. How do you graduate from a university program and find your way up to Delta Tech Ops? So lastly, we're going to we'll turn it over to Raina. She can talk about a few other points of things that really make Western unique and specialized.
So first things first, when it comes to making us pretty special, we like to give a special shout out to our dean, Captain Dave Powell, who's that guy pictured there in the bottom right corner. You can see he gets pretty excited about our students' success on graduation day. He does come to us from a airline background. He got his start in the military as a Top Gun pilot, and then moving on to United Airlines, and was actually their chief pilot there for a number of years. And while he was there, he hired about 7,000 pilots. So definitely knows what the airlines want to see when they're hiring, and has structured our program to ensure that all of our graduates walk out the door with all those boxes checked off on their resume, and really ensuring our graduates are set up for success within the industry. We talked earlier about our industry involvement, how they have a frequent presence on campus, and we encourage our students to network with them, get involved with them, talk to them when they're here, and take advantage of our partnerships and opportunities that we have within our industry partners. We didn't get a chance to look at our fleet. If you want to schedule an individual session with us, we will go over that with you. We do fly the Cirrus SR-20, which is a very technologically advanced airplane. We do that on purpose. Similarly, for our tech ops students, we do use state-of-the-art standards, procedures, equipment. Again, all setting you up for your success and training you for the future. We don't want to train you on outdated technology that won't be there anymore by the time you get through your career. We want you to be prepared for what's coming next. Again, all about setting you up for success within your career. Last point there, all about a well-rounded curriculum, having that coursework to back up what you're going to be experiencing in the sky, in the labs, in your aviation management, utilizing our seasoned industry professionals as our professors. All of our professors have come from the industry and have a lot of unique and interesting stories that they sprinkle into class.
So question about, do our students live, is there an aviation residence hall specifically for our aviation students? Do aviation students live together? And the answer to those are both yes and yes. Western Michigan University does offer living learning communities, and one of those in particular is our Aviation House. An Aviation House used to be housed at Henry Hall, but we have a new home this year, which is going to be at Ackley, which is going to be a great location for us. So it's not the hall that really matters for us, it's about the community that our students have the opportunity to build. About 60 to 80% of our aviation, especially our new aviation students, choose to live in Henry Hall, or choose to live in Aviation House. And there's great opportunities that we have what we call learning community assistants that put on special programming. You have automatic study buddies, because more than likely the person you're living with or the person living next to you or down the hall has the same class as you. The learning community assistants like Cody and Helen pictured there, they're juniors and seniors in the program, so they've probably taken the classes that you're taking, so they have tips and of the trade to help you with that. So it is a great option. However, as a Western student, you don't have to live there. It's a choice. And some students, excuse the pun, choose to spread their wings and they want to live in the general student population. It's totally up to the students. So Matthew, you've lived in Henry Hall. What's it like?
Henry Hall is absolutely fantastic, and Ackley is going to be even better in my opinion for this. Just living with a bunch of other aviation students is a really good way to make social connections. A lot of the industry is going to be through networking, and this is where it all starts. But even more than that, I just made a lot of friends my first year living in the learning community. The learning community assistants are really great at telling you things like, hey, you should definitely take this class with this professor. Moving to Ackley this year, I'm a little jealous just because Ackley is a slightly newer facility. It has a suite style bathroom. Additionally, there's more student collaboration space for working on projects with friends, and it's closer to the Valley Dining Center, so that's always a plus. Just a warning, freshman 15 is real. The dining centers on campus are really good.
So we also have a number of student opportunities for our students and residents, student registered organizations, and they can be things like you see here. We have 12 or 13 of them are aviation specific. The university has over 400 of them. Scott or Dylan, do you guys want to talk a little bit about student organizations?
Yeah, Scott's repping AHP there. Awesome. So me and Scott are obviously going to be a little biased toward this, but we're going to talk about Alpha Eta Rho, which is the professional business aviation fraternity. It's really cool. Scott's on the e-board. Scott's going to hopefully be on the e-board coming up here soon. So basically our main thing to do that we do with our the students in the fraternity is that networking. Networking is kind of like the biggest thing you want to do in the aviation industry, even at an early age, even if you're a freshman or anything like that. Because since the aviation community is small, like your name can get tossed around all over the place, and hopefully it's in a positive way, not a negative way. So to make those positive connections, a lot of students join Alpha Eta Rho. We go on tours. We've been to Delta's operations in Detroit. We've been to UPS operations in Louisville. When we went to Nationals, fall of 2018, they got a tour of FedEx at Memphis. We've been to Northern Jet. We've been to, which is a corporate facility in Grand Rapids. We've been to Whirlpool's operations in Benton Harbor. We've been all over the place, and hopefully this next year, depending on how COVID rolls out, we hope to get a tour of United's operations in Chicago and Southwest Airlines operations at Chicago as well. So, it's just, there's more than just tours as well. We have weekly meetings that we have, it's really cool because like 40 to 50 people join this every fall. And it's just a really great way to build connections with other friends as well. And then it's really cool as well. Every other Sunday we have alumni come in and talk to us about like what their careers are looking like coming out of Western. So it's a really fun group to join. We have like spaghetti dinners and stuff like that. We have, it's just a great way to make memories that you can bring on past your college career. So, all right. Matt, you want to talk about Women in Aviation?
Definitely. With Women in Aviation, as well as Organization of Black Airspace Professionals and the National Gay Pilot Association, we do a lot of the same professional network building that Alpha Eta Rho does. In addition, we also go and do a lot of different diversity initiatives within the industry, trying to make it a place where everyone else can join. So it's definitely these are good groups to be a part of. In addition to Women in Aviation, I'm also a part of NGPA. Raina, I actually think, is one of the founding members of our chapter. So there's some definitely good advantages to being there. You do get all the professionalism of the other organizations, plus you get to do a good social cause. And in addition, they offer some pretty nice scholarships. So I think they're great organizations to join.
So we did skip over this. I want to jump back here real quick. We talked a little bit about tuition. Raina, do you want to talk a little bit about tuition?
Yep, and I'll try to keep it quick here. We want to respect your time. First, you'll see two rates there, our in-state and out-of-state rate. We did talk about earlier how if you come in as an out-of-state student, you will stay as an out-of-state student. However, I hope you'll agree that the rates there are pretty competitive. So a couple of things about that total estimated cost that you see. It is for the year. It does include fall and spring semester, and it does include tuition, which is from 24 to 30 credit hours. So at Western, we do have a flat rate for tuition, which means per semester from 12 to 15 credits, anywhere in that window, you pay the same amount of money. So my personal recommendation is to try and take 15. You get a little bit more bang for your buck if you do feel able to do that. The other lines on there and the other aspect of that, that cost that you see does include the cost for room and board, living in the residence hall, and our one of our meal plans for access to the dining hall, and also the mandatory fees, for example, the cost for the aviation shuttle bus from the main campus out to the airport. One other quick thing I want to mention about our residence halls, I think I don't know if anybody mentioned, we do have Ackley Hall, our aviation learning community, but you are welcome to live anywhere on campus. And it's actually not even a requirement to live on campus. We do obviously recommend it, especially your first year. But if you would prefer to be mixed in with students of all majors and have friends in psychology or fine arts, you are welcome to live in a general first year student residence hall as well.
So that kind of brings us to our end. So we have been putting together some video blogs. We just completed one today. It's called the Hangar Talk episode number 4. And on that, you can, if you haven't heard enough from Matthew and Dylan, you get to hear from them even more as they talk about Alpha Eta Rho and women in aviation. But there also, we have a number of other episodes in there. Episode 1 is actually our dean and our associate dean, kind of talking a little bit about what it's going to look like for our incoming students for the fall, but there's some good information in there too. So we encourage you to go check those out as well. Like we said, this overall program is just kind of an overview, but we do encourage you, if you want a more individualized presentation and you want to do a deeper dive with us into all of these subjects and topics, please set up an individualized presentation of WebEx with us. You can email me again. There's my email at tom.finnis@wmich.edu, and we can get that scheduled up for you. And know that that's available, and we would love to meet with you on that as well. So with that being said, we really want to thank you for spending the time with us. Hopefully we've gotten all of your questions. So if you would like to, again, set up those individualized WebEx, if you have questions, if you want to talk to Raina, not only is she a teammate of mine, but she's also an alumni. So, ask her questions, ask Matthew and Scott and Dylan questions about all the programs, what it's like to be an aviation student. So again, thank you for joining us this evening. We look forward to engaging with you further as you keep looking into aviation programs. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.